Welcome to Marketing, Media, and Money, your go-to podcast for proven profitable strategies, secrets, and resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. Here's your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics today. I have a question for you. Is your social media strategy falling flat or just not delivering the results you need? Today, we will reveal the secrets behind creating a strategy that works, from reviving dead channels, scaling your efforts without burnout, and what marketing trends can you capitalize on right now to stay ahead of the curve and your competition. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. Her name is Peg Fitzpatrick, and she is a social media powerhouse. She has co-authored The Art of Social Media, Power Tips for Power Users with Guy Kawasaki, and she's now debuting her solo book, The Art of Small Business Social Media, a blueprint for marketing success. And as the first head of social strategy for Canva, Peg knows social media, creativity, and community. And as the secret weapon that big brands keep from their competitors, she has put into practice everything she teaches. That's always nice. And has pre-tested all the social media tips and engagement strategies to build successful platforms for her clients and herself. She's been awarded a Presidential Ambassadors for Global Entrepreneurship Medal from entrepreneur Damon John. And she's been featured on NPR, Time, Bloomberg Business, and Inc. So welcome, Peg. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. What an intro.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited. So let's just dive in because I have to tell you, I feel like this is really a topic. There are so many things that we hear about social media strategy, right? And every single person you talk to is going to tell you something else. Yep. So it's kind of like when you're pregnant, right? And then you go buy that pregnancy book and you freak out, but then buy another book. It'll tell you something different, right? So
right.
I love it that we're having somebody who is not just an expert on social media, but has literally, walked the walk and not just talk the talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got another book and, Guy Kawasaki. I mean, we can't go wrong with having a co-writer there.
No.
So let's just kind of dive into that. So Peg, from your experience, what would you say are the foundational steps to building a digital strategy that doesn't just look good, but actually drives real results for your business?
Great question. So I think, the first thing to start with is there's no cookie cutter approach that's going to work for everybody. So when you see these people on Instagram, like, I started 30 days ago and I have a great plan and I grew from this to this in 30 days and, get my download and you can do it too for $17. That was one I just saw recently. It's like, okay, this person showed up 30 days ago and maybe what they did worked for their account to grow something right now. That does not mean that's going to work for your small business, for you. So it's really, there's no cookie cutter and advice and there's no shortcuts either. That's, there's a lot of work on social media. There's no way to get around it. So if you're a small business owner, having a strategy obviously helps a lot. So the first place to get started is to figure out who your customers are, like who's going to buy your product or services. And then you want to tailor, and you're going to build out your brand. I mean, I go through all of this in my book, but I'm just giving the Reader's Digest version, the podcast version, if we will. You need to figure out who your audience is, because if you're not speaking directly to that small business owner or the person who's going to buy your products, you're speaking to like everyone. So people who say, my audience is everyone, everybody can use this. You're not going to speak to your ideal audience. What you want to do is create messages that are so great. People say, this is exactly what I needed right now, or this was the help I was needing, and this was the answer I was looking for. So you have to be helpful, online, answer people's questions and show them how you can help them with your products or services. So it's kind of, you are building something and you want people to come to it, but you want to definitely reach the right people. So I think that's something that people miss, when they try to do these quick strategies of just do this and just follow this exact reel strategy. Maybe the trending song will help your content do better. But if your content isn't talking to the right people, then, it's not going to work. It's not going to help.
And I think that kind of works for a lot of things too, because I know that as a marketing expert, I see that all the time when people will come to me, they don't know who their avatar, or they have 10 of them, right? Or, they don't really know what their customer journey map is. They've never mapped out the customer journey, and I tell them all the time, it's like, listen, yes, you need to speak to all of them in each one of those stages, just not in the same post, right? Not in the same thing, right?
Right.
And so I think that is really important. That was really, really good advice. But one of the things that I love that really hit me when I was checking you out, when I decided I wanted to have you on my podcast, is this thing that you call the social media CPR approach, right?
Sure.
About breathing life back into stagnant channels, right? And I think that's true, whether it's a Facebook group, a LinkedIn, or maybe, because again, like what you just said, somebody said, oh yeah, spend your time here or spend your time here. So now you kind of have walked away from this other one and you went over there and said, oh, nope, that didn't work. And now they're kind of stagnant, which, I also feel like sometimes some of those people that you're seeing are pretty big names, and that's why people think they should do it. But the fact of the matter is those pretty big names have pretty big teams and pretty big dollars behind it as well.
Right.
And stuff though. And so, I know I saw one not that long ago who literally worked for Tony Robbins, right? And she was saying, oh, I can help you to make $100,000. Well, she did it, but she'd already done all this work, all these other things. She had a really big team and had a really big budget and stuff though. So that doesn't mean it's going to fit everybody. Like you said, there's not a cookie cutter. You got to do the work with, and so I think that is important. However, when you do talk about this social media CPR approach, I kind of really want to talk about that, because I do think people do have stagnant channels, and specifically Facebook groups. I think that's a stagnant one that we're seeing a lot of right now. How can businesses revive, right, their social media presence and re-engage their audience? So if they've already let it go stagnant, I know a lot of times what people want to do is, oh, let me just change the name, or let me just shut that one down and start another one. But surely there has to be some way to revive your social media presence and just kind of re-engage the audience. So what are some strategies about doing that?
So the first thing is, I don't ever recommend shutting it down and starting over either, unless you switch to a totally different business and your customers aren't going to be the same anymore. But usually it's the same thing and you just let it drop off. So the first thing I always say is, don't start out with a post saying, sorry, I was gone. You always see the sorry, I didn't post for 3 months. And then they post for 2 days and then they come back, and it ends up looking like a yo-yo, and it really does not build trust with your audience. So don't post an explanation for why whatever happened. Life happened, business happened, something happened, you didn't post. The first thing is just create a good strategy. Figure out how much time you have to give to this channel before you get started and just do a one-off, because if you just start doing one-offs on your dead channel, it's not going to help at all. So figure out, how much time do you have? Can you devote a little time, create a little strategy for this? We'll just use a Facebook group, for example. So say you're like an antique shop and you have a Facebook group where you post, the new things that you're getting in the shop, and it's going to this group before it's getting posted publicly. So they have like a little sneak peek for like the big customers. So you're going to, just come up with a little plan, come up with, at least a week worth of content that you create ahead of time, create a little interest behind stuff, do some lighter content too. It doesn't all have to be, especially in a Facebook group, it doesn't all have to be like a sales thing. Come up with some lighter things, like post up something for Mondays, like a Monday motivation post, and do a picture of something cute and write a little thing that people can respond to. Facebook groups, and really anywhere, you really want to think about not posting something that's just static, but posting something that encourages people to engage with your content. So ask a question, do a little poll, do something that people can interact with. So come up with 5 different posts. We'll say a poll. We'll do, a this or that kind of post. We have 2 different things. Are you autumn or Christmas? Which is your favorite decorating thing? Give things that are really easy for people to respond to, because the easier it is for people to respond to, the better it is. And then if you're in a Facebook group, it's not going to really be something that shares, But on other social channels, you want to think about something that people could share to their audience. They're so excited to see it that they send a direct message to someone else saying, you cannot believe this. I want this so much. Or like, we have to go check this out this weekend. Something like that you're going to share. Sharing is really big right now in the engagement piece. Per Instagram themselves, Adam Mosseri, the head of Threads and Instagram, has come out and said multiple times that sharing piece is the most important. But for Facebook groups, as I said, that's not, those things, what's in the group stays in the group. So, think about, it's really kind of entertaining people a lot in a Facebook group. I feel like, you're really just like, there's a lot of things in the world for people to look at. And if it's a good Facebook group where there's lots of engagement, people are into it. They chose that Facebook group because they loved whatever the topic was or whatever the group that you created. And there's a lot of different things that you can have Facebook groups for, but it's, just come up with 5 different things. And if you can come up with your 5 things and create your week's worth of content, a thing that I've seen that's very successful is having just a different theme day for different days in there, give people a chance to drop their own links one day of the week, just Friday things. It's very, like I said, very entertaining content, but still you would work your marketing things in there at certain times, but not every post. So that, just coming up with a solid week of content, working out how much time you have, and then figuring out your plan for consistency is really important. So it's not as hard as it seems. Yes, maybe you haven't been there, but I think the thing that we all forget about is people aren't just going to remember that you weren't there. They might scroll down and see that you haven't posted for a while, but if you post something new and interesting and they see it and you have some comments underneath it, get the conversation going. It doesn't matter that you haven't been there for a little bit. So I think we think that people think of us more than they do, just kind of like in real life, just kind of move on with it and just zhuzh some life in there. Video is a great way too. Even started out with a video post. If you can just make a little video and just say like, hey, it's just so people see your face and, videos, just mix it up for that one week. If you see some posts that work really well, work it into your weekly calendar for every week and just work on your calendar for the month and just be consistent with it. Just if you're going to start it, if you're going to give it CPR, you have to be consistent moving forward. So make sure you have time to devote to it.
Makes sense. And, I think consistency, if you only have enough time to do it 3 days a week, well, then just consistently do it 3 days a week. You don't have to do it 5. If it's only 2, good, consistently do it 2. But I do believe that consistency really is the key. That's the main thing. Mm-hmm. So what about the small businesses that are trying to balance the DIY social media and outsourcing, right? So they have a VA, but they are kind of doing some DIY social media too. What aspects do you think they should focus on themselves and what should they consider outsourcing?
That's a really good question. So if you're going to outsource, I think the thing is you have to make sure that the person kind of really gets your brand voice and really gets your style of post, like what, visually what your brand is. So I think at the beginning, you would just need to work with someone and have them maybe create a couple examples of things that you like to post, or, if it's somebody like you and I that have already created a lot of stuff, like they can really like look at what we've already created and say, okay, this is my style. And, I'm kind of open to some new things within this, but this is what I really like. And here's some templates that I work with. And, I always want to stick with these brand colors, fonts, and all that kind of thing. So one thing is the visual piece of it. And then the other piece is the brand voice to make sure that they're really speaking as you. One thing that I see small businesses do a lot is they make the mistake of getting the voice wrong and they kind of talk like themselves instead of being the brand. And that's a little confusing for people when they're following, say the it's the little antique store again. And, they know it is like old timey antiques, but then the person's like, I just went to the blah, blah, blah. And it's confusing for people if you're trying to talk as yourself as an individual. You have to think about the brand voice. So that's something that you want to work with your VA. And depending on what kind of experience they have, you can give them a ton of things like, creating the graphics, creating the text. Are there some things that you feel most comfortable with? If you have like a promotion coming up? Do you want to like really come up with an outline for that? So it depends on where you are in your kind of working with someone level too. I mean, I worked with Guy for a good decade working on his things behind the scenes. So I've been on both sides of it. I've hired people and I've worked to do other people's things. You get to a level of, they just send you, here's this promotion, do this, do that. They send you pictures. It's great to get to that point. But at the beginning point, you do just want to be a little bit more hands-on, and see what their expertise is. Have them send the graphics to you beforehand, or just use like a Trello board. I love Trello, or Notion, something like that. Create a Trello board where they can put things in there so you can see them. You can approve them if you want, or just even to see them ahead of time and maybe tweak the text a little bit. So it takes a little bit to work together with a VA to get like the right, cadence and all the pieces together. But, there's a lot of people who create really great stuff. Amy Porterfield was the person who I think you were talking about before. She worked with Tony Robbins. She has a huge team of people. She does video and, she's got people helping her with all aspects of her business. So it's great if you're at that point, but most people don't have a team of multiple people to help them creating and doing things. So just think about, if you can afford someone a little bit, what are the things? Another thing to think about is what things are you most comfortable with and what things do you not like? Like, are there parts of what you do that are really not your favorite thing, but you really love, you really love creating the graphics? Then do that piece. Like whatever pieces are not your favorite thing, find somebody who can do those. Because the whole point of having a team is to have somebody that can help you succeed. So if you can only afford someone for, a few hours a week, do what works best for you. If email is the thing that you hate doing the most, have someone help you out and do your email. It's all, that's again, a personal thing. Like there's not a one size fits thing. It's kind of like finding the right person. So maybe you want to work with someone for 30 days and try it out and see if they're the right fit. So there's a lot of different ways that you can work with people. Small businesses usually aren't going to hire an agency because that's even more expensive. So if you are working with a small business, if you're a small business and you hire a VA, you just have them a couple hours a week, just figure out the best use of their time and make sure that you have enough for them to do. Sometimes you give them a few things and you think it's going to take a while and then they actually might need more. So kind of work with them, figure out what you want to get off your plate, the thing that's a drag for you. I mean, maybe it's creating graphics is a thing that you hate. So have them do it and then just have a really good plan. It's important for you to know as a small business owner, what your brand voice is and all of those things. Even if you're going to outsource it, because you want to make sure that it's right. So when you're outsourcing, you can, do the things that I suggested before, but then also, you do have to let go a little bit when you outsource and someone else is going to do your thing. So part of it is being patient and giving them time to do things. But it does work out really well. I mean, I think people are really comfortable with the practice now. It used to be a really strange thing, right? Where you would hire someone to do things and people were like, you don't even work with them. You don't even see them.
Well, I think most people now, most people that I work with for sure, all have a team. Like they usually already have a team, but still there's things they'd like to do. Like for me, I'm very creative and I love doing graphics. I love it, but it's a rabbit hole for me. I love it so much. I go down a rabbit hole. So basically I just created like a whole, kind of like when you're going to hire somebody and they show you a portfolio. I just created a portfolio of things that I created that I love. And then that's what I showed them. I want things that look like this. This is, what I like. This is what I've done. Mm-hmm. And I just want you to recreate other things with that. Here's my brand kit. Here's my colors. This is my font. This is whatever. And I still love doing all those things, but I do realize it is something that does take up a lot of time. So I have like 2 people on my team that literally do those things. And I have one person who just does captions for them and stuff. Right. And again, it has been really about training them to know my brand. Right? Mm-hmm. And still sometimes when we have our team calls, and I say, no, that's not, we're not going to use that. And they say, why? And I'm like, because that's not my brand, right? That is not my brand. And a lot of times as an example for this podcast, like I have somebody on my team who edits video. And so when they edit video, what sometimes they keep and what they don't is kind of like, why did you share that? And like, just, like, why'd you share that? Why did you think that that was important? It is something that the guest said, but like what you're saying right now, talking about VA, you're not a VA agency. So like, really, honestly, I don't think you would really want me to create all these reels about how you should train your VA, right?
Right.
A lot of times it's that, but literally that is about training them what is on brand, right? What is on brand.
Yeah.
And so that's why for everybody that I work with, my team, they know my clients' brands, even though they don't really work with my clients, but if I ask them to do anything, they have to know. But it kind of tells them a little bit about who you are. So I do think that is really important, but to make sure we don't digress. But I do feel like it is important to know those things when you are outsourcing.
Yeah.
And to really be clear on exactly what you want them to do. So I don't think, like anything else, whether you have a brick and mortar business or whatever, very rarely do you hire somebody that gets everything right day one, right? There's always some training, but you want to, because, there's like some adage about that, you don't want somebody to stay that's not doing it. You really don't want them to leave either. So train them for what you want. So,
and part of the piece with the graphic style, like when it's your brand visuals and things, you just like when it's your own brand, like that is me, that isn't me, like something like it could just be a very small thing and you're like, no, that's just not like, I wouldn't use that emoji or whatever it is. Like, there's some that you like and it's part of it is a visceral thing inside of us. Like we created this, like we've all created our brands and they need, it's kind of like your baby,
I agree. Like I know that my team, some a marketing company, right? And I don't like white boxes. I don't like white boxes, right? And so I know a lot of times when you want people to write in things, whether it's in a workbook or whatever, like they always make a box and that's where they write. Well, I actually have boxes that are my own boxes, right? And so I always have to say, no, they need to have my box. It's like they need my box. And they're like, Hattie, what's the deal? They're just writing in the box. But no, when I look at it, it's not my brand. Like my brand has very specific boxes and stuff, and it's not a big deal. They're in the brand kit. Like that's what I want, right? But once they get it, right?
Yeah.
And stuff. So I think that's really good.
Yeah.
So would you say with the constant pressure, right, to produce fresh content, right? How do you think you can find the balance between creativity and consistency in your social media strategy? Because it really is doing both, right? We talked about consistency, how important that is. Kind of just talked about being creative and how you can have somebody help you that. But there is a balance there that you have to do because we really are producing fresh content all the time. Right. Although I have to tell you, I'm a believer in a huge component of you can create and you can curate, right? There's both of those things that you could do. But what would you say is the balance, what you should be thinking about when you're balancing those two things?
I think the thing is to try to batch process things, create a batch of content in a time. You don't have to share everything that you create right away. So if you have a chunk of time, especially for small business owners who are managing a million different things, and social media is probably just one part of it. So if you're a person who just has a small amount of time, it's a lot easier to batch process things, get all camera ready and just record some video or just record some B-roll video and have a bunch of things that you can use when you need to. And then especially if you have a team, that gives you stuff that you can send them to. If you have a team, you can have them curate ideas for you, find things that are trending. You can have them create a little punch list for you of like, make these 5 things. And then you can take one group of time, get your lights and your sound and everything perfect, and just make 5 different little pieces. When you batch create things, it makes it so much easier because when you're doing a one-off, then you have to get everything all set up every time. And, it's just, sometimes you need a couple minutes to get the vibe right or get the camera right or whatever, once you get the vibe going, then it's easy to create a bunch of different things. So batch creating content helps because then either you or your team has things to put out for the near future. If you're not creating a plan ahead of time, obviously it's really hard to be consistent and it's really hard to create good quality stuff. If you're like, oh my God, I haven't posted anything today or I haven't posted anything in a week. And then you start getting like nervous about it. then you do something that's not great and you post it anyway, doesn't really serve any purpose at all. If you're creating something and the only purpose it has is just to post something today and it doesn't have any other purpose, it's not going to really help your business. So, so creating that strategy plan and then just having a couple times, even just one good chunk of time a week where you can like record a bunch of things or just create a bunch of things helps a lot, I think. What do you batch content at all?
Oh, I batch all my content. I actually have 2 times in my week that I block off.
Yeah.
That I block off time that are no calls. That's where I work on that so that I can hand them off for sure.
Yeah.
And I think you talked earlier about, or in your bio, where I talked about how you've worked with Canva.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say, because we're talking about being creative and batching, right? So it's perfect leading right there. So what would you say are some of the most creative ways to market a business using Canva? And how can even the most design challenged entrepreneurs create visually compelling content? Now, I have to tell you, I have Adobe and all these other things too, but I have to tell you, you can do so many things with Canva. I mean, that whole change all button and the batch button. I mean, like there are so many things, and the resize. I mean, you can just do so many things so quickly, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's so easy to just create. And then once I approve them, just say, yes, now resize them, change this or whatever. But I feel like you can be so creative. Now, I do believe, I will say first, I do think there are some things you shouldn't use Canva for. But as a general rule, I think you could do a whole lot in your business by using Canva. So what would you say are some of the creative ways? Here's where we want this. What are some ninja tips and hacks that you can share?
Okay. So I think one thing is to create, like we already talked about the brand kit. So having your brand kit already set up in Canva makes everything else easier because you have all your colors and fonts. And then you can choose a bunch of images. They have images in there, but you can, make sure that your images are all on brand. So when you just have all your stuff in there ready to go. You mentioned bulk creating. The bulk create button is amazing if you want to create a lot of the same thing. So say you have a podcast and you want to create, for every show, you want to have a quote graphic for, just some little quote, and you want to have that in 2 sizes. So you can go and create a spreadsheet and you could just put all the things, all quotes in there. So like say you're back doing it for a bunch of episodes. You can make 30 quotes from people. You could even take your transcript and find quotes that, like, there's a lot of really big shortcuts that you can find things, but you could take your transcript, put it into an AI, say, find, 5 great quotes. And if we'll do it for Pinterest. So if you're going to do it for Pinterest, you can do 5 quotes from one podcast, no problem. So you can create one graphic in Canva, and then and then you can put your logo on it, have all your great branding on there. The only thing that's going to change is the guest's name and the quote. So then in the bulk create, you can just hit the little bulk create button and you connect the lines in your CSV file with the quote and the person's name. And then you hit a button and it'll just create them automatically, all of them. And sometimes you have to tweak them a little bit, like one quote would be longer or shorter. So you can tweak them a little bit, but it's really easy to create really consistent content in a snap if you just have a spreadsheet of quotes or something else that you can use. Do you use bulk create button? Is that what you were talking about?
I use the bulk create all the time. I use it for everything. And I feel like I don't use too many personally of the templates that are in there.
Right.
I usually create my own, but I like the change all. I just create one and then do a whole bunch of things and change all, bulk, batch. I do all of those. So I think, and there is so many AI tools now, right? So, AI tools are becoming way more prevalent in social media management, right?
Totally.
Do you have any that you could recommend for streamlining content creation, scheduling, or engagement?
Yeah. So actually in Canva, they're working on even more updated AI. I'm on like a beta for the Canva thing. In their the work, you can do documents in Canva and you can have it do other things, right? So Canva is actually adding a lot more in there. I use ChatGPT a lot, and I also use another one called Magi, Magai, which is a really nice one where you can just go in there. You have one account, and you can use all different AI tools in there. We were getting like overloaded with AI tools. Everything is an AI tool. Everything used to be social media scheduling tools, and now everything is an AI tool. But they are helpful if you just create prompts for things that you want. Again, you can batch create your prompts to have AI do a certain thing. So if every month you want to create X, you can create a prompt. And once you work with the AI, depending on what one you're using, get them to know your brand voice. Sometimes you might want to put this is my brand voice, even have a prompt saying what your brand voice is and explain who you are, who your ideal audience is, what this post is about, and then ask them to create blah, blah, blah. So you can use AI to do shortcuts for a lot of things. I do like to use them for, like, if I'm going to make like multiple Pinterest pins, I have it create the title, the description, and that I can just create a bunch of pins, and then I can either schedule them in Pinterest, or you can use a tool like Plan. I like to use the Plan app a lot, and you can schedule those for multiple days. So it's really easy to take one piece of content and create a whole bunch of things and get it out there in the world. Because that's another thing that you need to be able to do if you're creating content, like you're making videos or podcasts or blog posts. You want to create a bunch of different pieces of content from that in different formats. And it's really easy to do that using AI to like just write out what you want for each thing. And then, have it create 3 LinkedIn posts that are text only, 2, threads, just write out the things that you want. And if it's not perfect, just keep going back and saying, this isn't exactly how I would say it. Can you make this more like this? This isn't the right brand voice. It takes a little bit of time to work with them. Generic prompts are obviously going to give you like a generic response, but once you start, yeah, right. So, the more that you work with it and the more that you stick with the same thing, I mean, I don't like to switch around tools all the time, because then you have the learning curve of a new tool and you get more tied up in that than you do with actually the content creation. It's easy to go down that rabbit hole too. So I just stick with those 2 different things, and I am doing more things in Canva in their back end. It's not back end, but it's just beta. So it's not out there for everybody yet. So those are the things that I like to do. And then there's always new things in Canva. I mean, there's a million things that you can create and do in there. For small businesses, it's really great to use their Canva print function. If you're making business cards or signs or any kind of things, even for like little trade show things, like say you're going to like a little like Chamber of Commerce event and you're going to have a little table, you can create one of those banners that pulls up, that folds down easily. I made one recently, printed it in Canva. It was so freaking easy. I made bookmarks, I made stickers. You can make all different kinds of things that you need for your small business own. And then you can print them in Canva and they ship to you. The print quality is amazing. I've printed all different kinds of things. The prices are really good. You can find coupons for that a lot if you're looking. But print isn't dead and traditional media isn't dead. Small business owners still have a lot of traditional media things to use. So it's not only for your online things, but you can use Canva for your offline things as well.
Oh, I agree with that too. And I think that with the AI tools, again, it's just like everything else, you train it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously, like I said, I'm in marketing. And so I help a lot of my clients with messaging. And so I'm kind of a prompt engineer. And so
cool.
Literally my favorite AI tool is called Cast Magic. And one of the things you can do in Cast Magic is you can, upload YouTube videos or audio or whatever. And then it has a whole bunch of community prompts built into it. But my Cast Magic has right now 52 custom prompts that I have created. 52
I haven't checked that one out yet. I'll have to look at it.
Yeah. So every single thing that I do, I have every piece of thing that I do. So like if I do a workshop or I give a speech, do a presentation, mm-hmm. like I just upload it in there. And ChatGPT actually has a Canva, plugin too.
Yeah.
So that actually works too. But like when I go to Cast Magic, I literally have created, and I do it for all my clients. So I literally create custom prompts for it, and it will take my one thing. It'll create everything for me. It creates all my reel scripts, my YouTube scripts and it's my voice because it's my content.
Right.
So it's not like I'm asking AI to write my content. It is my content.
Yeah.
And I just have it. It creates all my LinkedIn, my Facebook, my threads, my tweets, It creates the lead magnets, everything.
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy what you can do? I
always just like to tell people the thing that you want to do when you're using an AI tool is it needs to be your content, right? It is a language model, and you want to make sure you're checking it when you're just going in there doing it. So I never use AI personally to write content for me. I write my own content, and I use AI to enhance my content and to do other things for me, like a virtual assistant, and create things for me based on my content. So
I like to have it analyze my content too.
Oh, me too.
You put it in and you say, can you tell me what my brand voice is? And then, if it's not what you want it to be, it's a really great way to make sure you're online with your brand, because you think you're saying one thing. Do you use Grammarly at all? I love Grammarly because that has the little voice, tells you what voice is used. Obviously, it helps you make less mistakes too, but I like that it kind of gives you a read on like the tone that you have in the content that you're writing. It's really important. And, we all have different, a good day or a bad day. Like, even if you're having a really bad day, you still have to write your same brand voice and have the same tone. So I found that really useful to put some of my thing. I mean, it can read your website too, but I mean, just like a certain piece that you did or something that you did, just put it in there.
I always thought I have chunks of content that, depending upon what I'm doing, because it actually, it does have memory and stuff. So it really does that. But I find that because I've done so well in my prompting and what I want it to do, that when I go in and tell it the things that I want it to do, it does understand, but I always ask it to, I always say, and sometimes people laugh at this, like, if you tell it it's doing a great job and these type of things, it does listen. I like to tell, I call my ChatGPT Chatty, although I use ChatGPT.
I do too. I call mine Chatty too.
Yeah, so mine's Chatty Patty. Right. So Chatty, and I actually tell her, I have faith in you. I want you to take a moment. I actually type this. I want you to take a moment. I want you to really think about it. This is good. I think you can do a little better. Analyze it, critique what you did. Where are the gaps? Where are the opportunities? And I literally prompt it to do that. It'll just keep doing better and better and better and stuff. And so I think that you can do so much with it without having to keep going back. It will do those things. So I think that is really important, but it's knowing what to say to it. Input equals output, and it is about the prompts, right? Gone are the days where we just say, act like blah, blah, blah. That was, old school. Really, you have to do so much more.
You do. But I also like to be really polite with mine. I've asked other people about that, and they were like, no, I don't really think it matters, but I really think it does matter. I always say, could you please blah, blah, blah. And I say, thank you. And then I do the same thing. Like, this wasn't exactly what I wanted. Could you try again and make it more blah, 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 or this tone didn't,
I say thank you to it. I said, oh, this is great. Sometimes I'll say, this is really good. I said, but I think you can do better. I think we can improve it. This is what I think we need to improve it. And sometimes I'll say that, and then I'll upload more content that I think it needs and say, okay, let me upload a few more things. And then I'll put more things in there. And, and then it's like, oh, now I understand what you want. And stuff though.
I tried a thing yesterday where I was working, I had like a review that came up, and it was I did a screenshot of something and I loaded it, and I'm like, can you do a summary of this? And it read all the text from the screenshot to write a summary, which I thought was super helpful.
That I just started doing. That's really wonderful. So how when you create stuff and then you're going to add visuals, right? Then you're going to add visuals. Now you can actually upload the visuals to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to say, what is it that you see? Like, what do you see? And let it tell you, and then say, does that align with the copy? And you want to make sure that, what are the visuals aligning with the copy that you write? Right. And then the last thing I ask it to score, and that by their standards, what does this copy get? And then it always gives me at least an 8.5. That's the lowest I've ever got. It'll say an 8.5, and I'll say, what is it missing that would get it to be a 10 out of 10? And then it'll say, oh, well, have you thought about putting some FAQs in here? Or have you thought about putting this is for? And then it'll literally tell you, I'll be like, oh, yes, that's right. I should put that. And it doesn't really, I don't ask it to write it for me, but it will tell me those things and stuff, right? You know, if you're saying, oh, I'm doing a sales page, and I've had to sometimes say that they thought that the words on my buttons weren't as compelling. So it does analyze and do other things. So I feel like I could do a whole podcast just on my favorite ways I use AI, but
you should. It sounds like you've got some great things working there.
I love AI.
You're
but
like,
anyway,
yeah, I do.
I do. But that's so funny. So the digital landscape, let's talk about the digital landscape. Like it shifts quickly, right? I mean, look at how we're talking about AI. So what would you say your approach is to staying flexible and adapting your social media strategy in real time as the trends and algorithms change? Because, you know, everybody's like, oh my gosh, the algorithm changed and now we need to do this. And then they go all crazy and they do stuff. So I really feel like, yes, it does shift quickly. Yes, we do have real time trends and the algorithms do change. So what would you say your approach is to kind of staying flexible and adapting?
I think like you said, you do need to stay flexible and adapt, but also you need to stay true to yourself and your brand. I think, you know, Meta tries to make us post a certain kind of content that they want. You know, it was just text, and then it was like everything needs a graphic, and then everything was video, then it had to be a reel. Now everything is short form video. So they're, you know, it's like still changing. I think a lot of people who are like super OG on Instagram, they really just still like the beautiful aesthetic photos, and they still work in how to do those. And I think that's fine. I think one thing is you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, stick to the things that are the heart of your brand and adapt to the new things where you can. So when Reels first came out and they were popular, everything was a dance, even on TikTok, you know, everything was like doing dance move things, and everybody was doing the same things over and over again. And sometimes those can be popular and fun to do, but a lot of times those are not going to really help your business at all. Even people who have gone viral on TikTok, you know, it may not have helped their business at all because they didn't have everything else.
Laugh. It was just funny. Right. You know, I have friends that do that. I made the decision not to do TikTok for me and for my business, but I have so many clients like, oh yes, I'm on TikTok. I'm like, okay, so have you ever purchased anything? Oh no, I just like sit there all day and scroll and laugh. I'm like, well, that's really great, but how's that helping your business? Right. You know?
Right.
So I think it's true. What would you say about like one of the things that I think is really important? So I'm kind of curious to know what you think is really storytelling, right? It's really using storytelling. I think it's key to building those connections on social media. Yeah. So do you have any tips for crafting an authentic brand story so that it resonates with your followers and it encourages interaction? Because really that's what it's all about, right? So I have seen people like throw up on social media and they just, oh my goodness, like it was like way, way too much. I don't think people really need that, right? You know,
I think so too.
There are some good keys on how you tell a story.
Oversharing your personal life is not storytelling. For a brand, that's those are two different things. So I think storytelling, yes, is very important. And I think for small business owners, you are the heart of your business. And so you are the best person to create your story. And I think obviously we're all not going to have a whole bunch of stories, right? We have like one story about why our brand started. And there may be different things that we did within it, but I think you need to just really take the time to like write down what are the core things of your brand. What are the things that you can talk about that are going to connect with people? In my brand, I talk about that I'm from a small town and that I love small businesses because they're the heart of all of our communities. And, you know, that's the thing that I talk about a lot. My brand is kind of like a girl next door kind of small town girl kind of thing. And that's really that is who I am. So that is what I put in there. And I talk about these things purposely because there's been times where when you're a speaker too, so you've done this, so you go speak at conferences or speak at events, people come up to you and you want them to say, you're exactly like you are online, because I am like, and it takes a little bit to hone that, who you are and what your voice is. And that is all part of your story. There's people who I met that I followed online and I met them in person and they were nothing at all like their online brand. And they were rude or jerks and then you're like, you know what? Everything that you're saying online is just a lie. So you don't want to be that person. You really want to have like an authentic, I know it's kind of a cliche phrase. Yeah, it is a buzzword, but it is a true, you really want your true story to be part of your storytelling, brand. So there are a bunch of good storytelling books, but I would urge you to like write out what you feel your story is. And again, you can use AI for this. Go to AI and say, use the guidelines in this book, like, Donald Miller's story brand or something, and say, can you evaluate, the story that I'm telling? This is, I want to reach this customer, and how can I work with this story based on the framework and this model to, and then you can have it evaluate your story and see if you are telling the right story, if you are reaching the right people, and if you are kind of explaining it. And then it's working your story into different social posts, however you're going to work it in. So it's kind of like one thing that you write that gets used a lot. It's going to be like in your about page, and it could be little pieces of it in your bio, maybe. And then you would use it, in different things. You could create like a little boilerplate that goes at the bottom of like LinkedIn posts saying like, I'm blah, 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 the blah, 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 with just like a little tagline kind of thing that would go at the bottom that would have keywords in it. So they're searchable. So, there's a lot of ways to work your story in, but you really just need to hone in on what it is first. And if you're not really sure at all what your story is, just like I said, take some time, look for some blog posts and videos on storytelling, and just work on it. Disney storytelling and Pixar storytelling are amazing for a reason. And there's just some key elements in stories that people want to hear. And storytelling has been around since the beginning of time, before even written word, when it was just pictures on the wall. We want to communicate with people. So just think about, how you can create a story that really tells who you are and reaches the right people. Get all those pieces tied in. And like I said, you're just going to reuse parts of that in your social posts and on your content.
Agree. I think I'm a speaker. And so I would say that probably the greatest compliment that I've ever had over and over and over and over is when people say to me, you know what, Patty, now that I've met you, you're exactly the same on social media as you are on the stage, as you are when I meet you, as you are at the coffee shop. I'm like, yeah, it's too hard to try to be somebody else. Right? Right. I just want to be who I am. And so I think that is important. But I do have to say, I will admit, storytelling was hard for me. It really was, mostly because I'm very wordy. I tend to be very wordy, and I like to paint the picture and, have the trees and whatever. And so, you can go off in the weeds, right? Telling the story. Like, even in my family, my friends are like, okay, Patty, right. And stuff. And so when I became a speaker, I had to really learn very quickly how to hone the story to the important parts of the story. And I have a friend who literally writes for my magazine, and she is a storytelling expert. And every time I look at her social media posts, she seeds like inside every post, like even by little statements where she'll say, but that's a story for another day. Right. But now, there's going to be another story or, or whatever. And it just is like a line in what she's telling you now. She's so good at it. And that doesn't come to me naturally. It is something that there's things that come to us that are super natural, really, really easy. Connecting's easy for me. But that is probably the thing that I don't want to say I struggle with, but I cognitively work on it all the time, right?
Key phrases are that's a really interesting thing to add to your brand voice. Come up with some key phrases that you use consistently, whether it's a little slang, whether it's a little, that's a really interesting piece. Do you follow Ashlyn Carter? I love her so much.
Ashlyn, right?
Yeah.
Carter?
She's a conversion copyright person. She's worked with like Amy Porterfield and Jenna Kutcher, and she writes the copy for their launches and things like that. She's so amazing. She's got a YouTube channel and really great content. She's really great for like having you figure out all that stuff.
Because I think it is really, really important. I mean, I'm in marketing, so really helping someone to really understand that. I'm going to go check her out. I am connected to her, but I will check her out.
Yeah, I love it.
We're on a podcast and we're sitting here like doing
but there's a lot of different people that, like you said, your friend is really good at storytelling, and Ashlyn is also like, her email is like a really great email. When I get it, I'm like, I hate getting emails and I love her email. So, there's something to be said from being able to learn from people, because we're great at marketing, but that doesn't mean we're conversion copywriting experts. That's her main area of expertise.
I think that is really interesting too, because sometimes, like I get a lot of email because I sign up for a lot of things. So I love to see funnels and stuff, right? And I probably have, I want to say like 7 newsletters or whatever that I read as soon as I get them. I know when they're coming. I love them. And being able to take a story and then turn it into like, you're going to learn something about business in that, I think is really a great skill set. And I remember years ago, I'll never forget it. I don't know if you remember, there was this show that was on called Scandal, and it was all about Olivia Pope, right?
Oh, yeah.
A fixer.
Yeah.
And one time I saw somebody write this email that said 10 things I learned from Olivia Pope. So literally it stood out in my email. And then they just broke down these things about her and how they applied them to their business. Like I still have it. I still think it's probably one of the greatest posts that I have ever seen. And I'm just like, it is really great when you could take a story and apply it, which when I teach that to my clients, I call that newsjacking, right? Newsjacking, right? And stuff is really, really important. But I do think that learning how to do that is key. And it's kind of like a trend, right? So speaking about marketing trends, right? They're always evolving. Always. Yep. So what fresh trends are you seeing right now in social media and digital marketing? And how can businesses capitalize on them to stay ahead?
I think, I would say the biggest thing is really building your community, and the engagement piece is really big. The focus isn't on the follower count. It's more on, people that you're talking to, direct messaging, comments on people's posts. Like I had mentioned earlier, sharing, the sharing, those are the things that are really important now, because as the algorithms shut things down further everywhere, and we have X amount of people following us, only a small percentage of those people are going to see everything. Even if it's the best thing we've ever created, they're not going to be shown to people because the algorithms have turned them off to some extent. So think about ways that in your copy that you're making sure that you're, putting engagement points in there, asking questions, making it easy for people to comment on things. Using like the ManyChat bots, if you're delivering, if you have things that you want to send, if you're doing like a giveaway or a new blog post, or, if you're selling things, write that really engaging content and then have people comment a certain word. And then with that bot set up, it sends people, it automatically comments on your post, and it sends whatever you want to them via their direct message. Some people have it set up so things are only sent to people that are following them. So if you're not following them, they're not going to send you things. So there's ways that you can grow your account that way, build your account that way. You don't want to overuse that. I have it on my account, but I don't overuse it. I only use that type of thing for certain types of content. Like blog content every week would be too much, or a podcast every week would probably be too much. But they are popular, and the commenting, and then you're commenting, and then that sends the messages that this is something that people are interested in. So more people are shown that piece of content. Sometimes you'll see a post where it has like hundreds of comments and it's only that thing that they're giving away. So if you're creating some really valuable lead magnet, that's a great way to get the word out there. So just building engagement strategies. One thing is you can't boost those posts. You can't edit or boost them once you're using the bots on that specific post. But communication, making sure that you're answering questions on your own post, of course, checking your direct messages, and just really engaging with people, looking at the things that people are asking in your comments or direct messaging you about, using that as a post. If somebody sends you a question like, hey, Patty had a question about your last lead magnet. Did you mean X or X? You can take that a screenshot of that and use that to create a post saying, I created this lead magnet and somebody had a question. I thought maybe you might have it too. So, and then do the answer there. And then it links back to that person. It shows that people are interested in your content. Maybe someone else did have that question. Usually if someone has a question, someone else had the same question. So yeah. So I'll just make sure that you're building the community while you're working on doing your social posting, because I feel like the community and the connection are more important than ever. because there's just so
I think
many.
so too.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have found in the algorithm, or at least specifically on Facebook, is one of the things, people will like your post, right? They think they're helping you. Not that that's better than nothing, right? But really, it's much better when they leave a comment. It's even better if they share, right? But
Right.
they leave a content. But, a lot of times people will just leave a comment and it'll say truth or,
It's hard to comment.
like a one word thing.
Yeah.
And I've been actually tracking that for a while now. And I have found that if you're going to leave somebody, if you really want to help them, right? If you want to help somebody and you're going to leave them a comment, I have found that 6 words has kind of been the sweet spot. Like if whatever you say is 6 words, even if it's something like, oh, wow, I never thought of that. That's a different way of thinking of it or something like that, right? But they really like it if it's 6 words.
I wonder if they have the algorithm set up if it's a 1-word answer on Facebook that they don't really put any weight on it.
I don't know, but I have known like 6 and 7. I feel like I've been tracking it, and 6 and 7 seems to really be good. And even sometimes people will share or they'll go post it on their post, but they won't even say in the comments, oh, this was so great, I'm going to share this to my audience.
Right.
It's like, wow, you should help them by saying that, right? So I think that sometimes it's just not always thinking, but I really kind of trying to train my clients in my community to say 6 words. I just ask,
Yeah.
it's not that hard to say 6 words.
Leave a thoughtful comment. If you're going to leave one, leave a thoughtful comment that adds some value.
Well, first of all, that's why people are going to want to follow you, because you added some value to it. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to tell you, Peg, this has been really, really great. And I always like to say that we always invite everybody to share something. And a lot of times people come bearing gifts, and that's always really great. But for you, you didn't have just a gift. You literally have a whole resource page on your website, which I went to and downloaded myself, like 4 different gifts. That one gift of like 300 call to actions is like a beautiful gift. So I was like, what a great gift. And stuff though. So, what is your website so people can go and grab all those fabulous resources and find out more about you and see how to connect with you and all the good stuff?
My website is pegfitzpatrick.com. Thank you so much. I saw that you downloaded things. I was like, awesome. I like to download people's things too and see what is out there. But
I always download anybody who's like on my podcast, because I feel like I might get some really great stuff out of there to ask them some questions, right? So 300
calls. Actually, that used to be 50, but I added a whole bunch more. They are helpful. So if you guys are looking, if you're stuck on calls to action, I got a great lead magnet for you.
It is. And she had some other ones too that were really good. And so this is the Marketing, Media, and Money Show, right? And so I always like to say, thank you so much for sharing. But if you had to narrow it down to your number one strategy that's working for you right now, like what is working for you right now, what would that number one strategy be?
So it's working for me now, and it's been working for me for a long time. It's my favorite, which is leveraging Pinterest, because when you create things for Pinterest, they last longer than other social posts. So if you have a piece of content, create a Pinterest-sized graphic of 1,000 by 1,500 and use SEO, use your search engine knowledge, and just use keywords in the title, in the description, and on the graphic, and link it back to whatever you want, your podcast, your blog post, your video. Every single thing you create on Pinterest can actually link to something, even videos. So if you're creating short form videos for Reels or anything else, make sure that you share them on Pinterest as a pin, and then you can put the link on there to whatever you want. So it's a long-term powerhouse for me. You just want to make sure that you, like I said, use the keywords where you want to, that you want people to go. So if it's for small businesses, social media, you want to make sure that you're using those, because they call themselves a discovery engine, not a search engine. People discover things that they're looking for, and all of that helps more people find you, and they're found in Google search.
Now, I think that is a great tip. Thank you so much for sharing it. And she shared so much information, and we did kind of talk about her book, that she does have a book, and I will look below if you're listening or replay or watching, whatever the case may be. You will see all of her things below, but you will also see the link to her book, The Art of Small Business Social Media, A Blueprint for Marketing Success. So there is a link there. It's in pre-order right now, right? When is
Yes.
it being released?
November 19th.
November 19th. And this is evergreen. So it's after November 19th. It's already out, right? So that is really great. So thank you so much, Peg, for being here. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you coming and sharing all your great tips and strategy. And I'm sure that my audience loved it too.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
It was really fun. So to my audience, my community, if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. And also, have you ever checked out our sister product, our magazine, the Marketing Media Money Magazine? You can grab a free copy of that by going to m3digitalmag.com. So m3digitalmag.com. Grab a copy of that too. In the meantime, we'll see you again next week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at m3magazine.com. That's M3magazine.com. I promise your business will thank you.